Deep dives and blue skies. Welcome back to Talking Blue with Nick, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talking Blue, the best Dodgers analytical podcast that you can find. I'm your host, Nick. You are listening to episode 95 of Talking Blue. We are going to recap the Dodgers and the Astros series, which just wrapped up about 30 minutes ago. The Dodgers take 2 out of 3 in Houston, win the first game, drop the middle game, get out of there with a series win on the Wednesday afternoon game. Pretty good series overall. We're going to do some injury updates, obviously recap the 3 games, talk about Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow left the game in the second inning in this game on Wednesday. We're going to get into all that, do a couple breakdowns, got a lot of stuff for you guys. As always, you can get this podcast on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of the videos dropping. You can follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. I tweet a lot about the Dodgers and a lot about baseball stuff in general. All right, so before we get into the 3 games, let's go ahead and do some injury stuff. Let's start with Tyler Glasnow, obviously the most recent. If you watched this game that just wrapped up, he left after 1 inning, went out to start the second inning after a couple warm-up pitches, obviously felt uncomfortable, left the game with the trainer, came out like 20 minutes after that, lower back pain, so immediately small victory right there. It is nothing elbow, shoulder, forearm related, so that is a huge win. I just checked X real quick before I hopped on here to see if he talked to the media. I think he just summed it up to like back spasms, says he's dealt with it before. Didn't necessarily say like, oh, I'm great, I'm going to make my next start, or, the opposite. He basically said, I'll have to see how I feel the next couple days. So right now, I will say this is a huge win and seems like it is nothing too serious. Definitely is nothing too serious in terms of him like missing a ton of time. Now, it will determine the next couple days will determine, does he have to maybe go on that 15-day IL, just miss like 2 weeks and then come back, or maybe does he get pushed back a start? Whatever the case is, we'll kind of learn some more info over the couple days, but it is not a elbow or shoulder injury. Of course, all the fears were running through my head as soon as I saw that. Tyler Glasnow is about the most injury-prone pitcher, like elite good pitcher in the game. And it's kind of like, you kind of go into the season hopeful that he could stay healthy, but kind of knowing that there's, I don't want to say no chance, but it's kind of unlikely. So you can kind of always be prepared for a Glasnow injury. So at the end of the day, like I said, no elbow, no shoulder stuff. Next, Brock Stewart was just activated today. He actually appeared in the 3rd game of this series, and I'll get to that. Got 2 strikeouts. They send our option Jake Eater. So Brock Stewart, who could be a big option, a big piece for this bullpen, he comes finally off the IL to make his debut. So that is great. Blake Snell will make what will probably be his last rehab start this weekend. Okay, and then next week, of course, the Dodgers will have some tough decisions to make. Again, hopefully this Glasnow thing didn't come as a fan. I mean, if he's not, if he's injured and has to go on the IL, so be it. But, sometimes baseball is a funny way of making it, working itself out. And you obviously could see that with Blake Snell looming, Dodgers were going to have some decisions to make, 6-man rotation, optioning maybe someone going to the bullpen, whatever. I'm hopeful that they don't just look at it as, hey, let's have Glasnow skip a couple starts and we'll bring Blake up and then we'll figure out the rest of that at the end of the month. That's just me as a selfish fan because I don't want to see Glasnow go down. So, but I wouldn't be shocked if something like that happens. So we'll have to see. Kike Hernandez, he finally made a rehab appearance yesterday. So we'll see how that progresses. But I would imagine, again, probably spend like 2 weeks there, get called up mid-May, probably somewhere around like May 20th if I had to guess. Mookie Betts will face live hitters tomorrow at the time of this recording, which will be Thursday, May 7th, with a possible rehab assignment following that. I wish it was over the weekend, but realistically probably to start next week. And Mookie probably doesn't need a ton of time to get ready, so like probably could see him the following week, maybe 2 weeks. We'll see. And that's pretty much it. All the other guys, Tommy Edman, Edwin Diaz, Landon Knack landed on the IL the other day, 60-day IL, so probably won't see him this year. That's pretty much it with all the injuries. So let's waste no time. Monday night, Yoshinobu Yamamoto is on the mound. The Astros are going with a opener bullpen game. Let's go ahead and get into that game. Dodgers get on the board first in the top of the first inning. Kyle Tucker, the old Houston Astro, he bloops in a single to left field. That's a great sign to see. We want to see Tucker heat up. Astros would get on the board first, though, actually, and would respond in the bottom of the first. RBI single from Jose Altuve, and then a wild pitch a batter later from Yamamoto makes it 2-1, so the Astros take the lead. But the Dodgers would also respond. You could figure there'd be some offense in this series with how good these two teams can hit. Alex Freeland shoots one out to left field into the Crawford boxes to tie the game up. A couple batters later, Will Smith, he doubles into left center field to put the Dodgers up 3-2. We go ahead to the third inning. Kyle Tucker hits his 4th home run of the year, again against his former team, the Houston Astros. Dodgers go up 4-2. An RBI ground out from Shohei Ohtani to make it 5-2. Freddie Freeman, he singles into center field to make it 7-2. Another Freddie Freeman single in the 5th would make it 8-2. Dodgers would hold on, and they would win by a score of 8-3. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, he gets the win. He goes 6 innings. Kyle Hurt for 1, Blake Treinen for 1, and then Jack Dreyer to end things. He pitches 1 inning. Let's get to Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who looked pretty solid in this start. Actually, I should say better than solid. He looked pretty good. Did give up a few runs, of course, 3 earned runs. Did give up a home run. But overall, he brought the strikeout stuff and looked pretty good. Yamamoto has been a tad bit inconsistent by his high standards early on in this year. Still has an ERA just over 3 at 3.09, but 6 innings pitched, 5 hits allowed, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, 17 whiffs in the game. So like I said, Yamamoto brought the swing and miss, which is nice to see because early on in the year hasn't had a ton of whiffs and strikeouts. He's kind of been playing catch up to add to those strikeout and swing and miss totals. And this good amount of swing and miss in this start has increased his whiff rate on the year. He's got a 30.1% whiff rate. That is 13th best in Major League Baseball. So he's getting back up there with the whiffs, kind of getting more in line with what he was last year. Another thing that was nice, a 50% whiff rate on his four-seam fastball in the start. That is kind of uncommon from Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He always has had a pretty good four-seam fastball, especially I shouldn't say always because his first rookie year struggled with that pitch a tad. Last year, that was one of the reasons he took a not extreme, but a big jump to that all-star really good year. It was his four-seam fastball being really, really good, but he's never gotten a ton of whiffs on that pitch. He keeps it on the ground, limits hard hit damage and all that stuff, and it's really been a good pitch for him, although he's never really gotten whiffs on the pitch. So seeing that he got 50% whiff rate in this game on the four-seam fastball is exciting. The velocity was up a tad. He has gone about it a little bit differently this year. He's incorporated more sinkers. He's relied a lot on the cutter this year, which is kind of weird because it has given up some damage this year. All right, so if you go ahead and take a look at his individual pitches, 400 batting average on his cutter and a 560 slug. He does get a decent amount of whiffs on that pitch, and I see why he uses it as kind of an equalizer against lefties, kind of pounds lefties in with that pitch, but he gave up a home run. The home run he gave up in this game was off of that cutter. Wouldn't mind seeing that pitch drop down a little bit in terms of his usage, maybe increase the curveball a little bit more, but, the splitter has been used as his most often pitch this year. That's not something we saw last year. He's throwing that splitter more than his four-seam fastball, and with good reason because it has a batting average of 167 with a 39.6% whiff rate, so basically a 40% whiff rate on his splitter. The curveball, I would love to see that pitch get used a bit more, a 200 batting average against, and he's obviously used the sinker a little bit more this year. Throwing it to left-handers a little bit more, and it actually was looking good in this game. His sinker had some nice run on it, darting across the zone, diving into some right-handed hitters. So really good start from Yamamoto. Like I said, he's got the whiff rate up, 13th best in Major League Baseball now. Doesn't have the high K rate that he had last year, 23.5. He would like to see him get that closer to 30%. But, I think as the year progresses, we'll get there. 43 innings pitched, he's got 40 strikeouts. So he is really another like start or two good starts away from really being much more in line with what he was at a year ago. What continues to be the biggest difference with Yamamoto is that he doesn't have the ground ball rate that he had a year ago. His first year in the big leagues, he had a 48.3% ground ball rate. Last year, he had a 53.7% ground ball rate. That was one of the best in Major League Baseball. Right now, it's at 40.3%. That's a big dip in his ground ball rate. So, obviously, you pair the strikeouts, the whiffs, and the ground balls together, as I've said before, that's going to help your numbers and help you just be a great pitcher overall. One of the ways, though, he's been able to cover that up and kind of, negate the ground ball, the lack of ground balls, is that he's had an increase in walks, or limiting the walks. His command has been much better. He had a 6% walk rate his rookie year. Last year, though, it was up to 8.6, which is, again, I've always said, is kind of funny because you never think of Yamamoto as a guy who allows walks. Right now, 5.9. It has dropped a lot. He's got one of the better walk rates in baseball. So he is pounding the strike zone at a much better rate. So Yamamoto's been great, and as I keep saying after every start, he's going to be fine. Wouldn't even be surprised if he's an all-star again. He's been off to a good start. Not as well as he was last year, but I think that will progress. Before we get to Game 2, I just wanted to talk about a couple of the guys who hit well in this game. Obviously, we see Alex Freeland. He had 3 hits in this game, including a home run. Kyle Tucker had 2 hits and a home run. Freddie Freeman also had 2 hits. I did want to talk about Freddie Freeman and Will Smith. 2 guys who have been scuffling for a little bit, and their numbers, if you took a look at them going into the series, were just kind of like, nothing special. But I've been saying it all year about Freddie Freeman, and Will Smith's going to join this company. They've both been fairly unlucky this year, especially Freddie Freeman, because if you take a look at their slugging percentage and then their expected slugging percentage, what their slugging percentage should be based on their quality of contact, they have 2 of the biggest differences in baseball. So what I mean by that is Freddie Freeman, he has a .420 slugging percentage. That's probably changed because of the third game that wrapped up. But a .420 slugging percentage, his expected slug is .545. That's the second biggest difference in Major League Baseball when it comes to your actual slug and your expected slug. So based on the quality of contact, he's been one of the more unlucky hitters in the game. And again, to show how well Freddie has hit the ball early on in this year, he has a 12.8% barrel rate. That is his best since 2020, which was his MVP season. 92.5 average exit velocity. That is his best since 2015, so 11 years ago. His 50.4% hard hit rate. That is also his best since 2020. He's also doing all of that with the lowest strikeout rate he's had since 2018. So striking out less than he ever has in 8 years, and he's hitting the ball harder, better hard hit rate, better barrel percentage. All right, so all those numbers show that he is hitting the ball very well, getting a little bit unlucky, and at some point the luck will even out, and it will show in his numbers. And Will Smith, who I haven't really noticed, has also been very similar. The 5th biggest difference in slugging percentage and expected slug. He has a .385 slugging percentage. His expected slug, .505. And if you take a look at a lot of Will Smith's numbers, the chase rate, the walk rate, the way he controls the strike zone, he has also been getting unlucky and still looks like one of the better hitters in the game. So it was nice to see those guys get some results this weekend. Will Smith with the 3-hit game, or I should say this week. Will Smith with the 3-hit game on Monday. Freddie Freeman had a few hits throughout this week, so that's nice to see. Same thing with Kyle Tucker. He also had a nice series. Again, I'll get to him at some point because he played better as the series went on. So that's Game 1. Let's go to Game 2. Peter Lambert of the Houston Astros bounced around, former Colorado Rocky. He gets the start for the Houston Astros, who are dealing with a ton of injuries right now. So, of course, if it would have gone, I should have said this at the beginning, but going into this series, the Dodgers were going to face the Barry Bonds, the Alex Rodriguez of Dodger killers, Christian Walker, who has 12 home runs against the Dodgers in his last 14 games. That is amazing. How is that even possible? He has 30 career home runs against the Dodgers. Has there ever been a player who has owned the Dodgers in their history more than Christian Walker? He takes Shohei Ohtani deep in the bottom of the second inning to put Houston on the board. Next inning, third inning, Braden Shoemaker, he shoots a home run out to left field in the Crawford boxes to make it 2-0. Dodgers will not get on the board until the top of the eighth inning. Kyle Tucker hits a sharp single into right field to cut the deficit in half. It's a 2-1 game, but the Dodgers are unable to rally. They lose by a score of 2-1, a stinker. Shohei Ohtani pitches 7. Alex Vesia pitches 1. The Dodgers are unable to hit Peter Lambert, who goes 7 innings pitched, no earned runs. He walked 4, but also struck out 4, and he pretty much kept the Dodgers off balance for, like I said, 7 innings, and then Brian King gets the 2-inning save. So the Dodgers, unfortunate because they had been coming in with the cold, inconsistent offense. They bust out in game 1. You're thinking, here we go, the Dodgers offense is here, but they didn't do anything in this game. So let's talk about Shohei Ohtani, the way he pitched in this game, because he's pretty much the only thing to talk about from this game. He continues his dominant start on the mound. 7 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, which were both on solo home runs. 0 walks allowed. He had 8 strikeouts. All right. Shohei, once again, looked very, very dominant. He had 15 whiffs in the game. Four-seam fastball was averaging 98.4 miles an hour. He was throwing very hard. Continues to lean pretty heavily on the four-seam sweeper combo right now, which is a little bit of a shocker. Shohei's always been a guy who mixes up the pitch mix. He still is incorporating the splitter, the sinker, and the curveball, but he's starting to lean pretty heavy on the four-seamer and the sweeper. 43% four-seam fastball, 39% sweeper. After that, only 10% curveballs, 4% sinkers, 3% splitters. So he's starting to lean heavy on the sweeper and on the four-seam fastball. But again, it is with good reason because those 2 pitches have been nasty. He's got one of the better four-seam fastballs in the game. I've talked about this before. It previously was the best. He's actually been jumped by Justin Robleski, believe it or not. He has the best four-seam fastball in the game. But Shohei Ohtani, a 156 batting average against on that four-seam fastball with a 27% whiff rate. How about his sweeper? A 115 batting average against with a 43.9% whiff rate. All right, he looks great right now. And if you're unaware, this was Shohei's 20th start in a Dodger uniform. All right, that is good news. 20 starts that we've got to see from Shohei. And I did some digging, and I wanted to give some numbers where Shohei ranks as a starter, as a starting pitcher, since he put on the Dodger uniform. 20 starts since he put on the Dodger uniform. He is first in ERA, first in expected ERA, first in FIP, 5th in expected FIP, 4th in WHIP. He is 6th in strikeout rate, 10th in batting average against, 2nd in expected batting average against, 4th in barrel rate, and 9th in whiff percentage. Since he has put on a Dodger uniform, he has been one of the best starting pitchers in the sport. And another thing that is interesting is he is getting better. Believe it or not, he is actually getting better as a starting pitcher. He truly seems to be evolving as a pitcher, all right? And I'm going to show you why he is actually evolving as a true pitcher, as a true artist out there on the mound. Because if you look at some numbers, he doesn't have the highest strikeout rate of his career or the highest whiff rate. He's had years where he's had lower walk rates. It's not the hardest average fastball. That was actually a year ago. So you might say, well, how has he become a better pitcher? There are a couple things that show he really has better feel and he is more of a complete pitcher. All right, so he has the lowest barrel rate of his career right now. Okay, he's allowing the least amount of percentages of barrels. He has by far the highest ground ball percentage of his career. All right, so more ground balls is obviously huge. That is something he's never really done throughout his career, is get ground balls. That's obviously huge. Gives you avenues to get out of innings. More contact on the ground just means less slug. Now, what is also interesting about Shohei, he's actually dropped his arm slot since he's been in the big leagues. Okay, so when he first broke into the big leagues, he had a 45-degree arm angle. So if you take a look at Baseball Savant, he was more over the top. Now, in 2026, he's dropped his arm slot 10 degrees, a 35-degree arm angle. So he's completely dropped his arm slot. He's lowered his arm slot. I found that very interesting. He has the highest edge percentage of his career. What does that mean? The highest amount of pitches on the edges of the strike zone. All right. So that is also a reason why it's led to a little bit more chase. But earlier in his career, Shohei was a guy who was more reliant on the stuff and throwing the ball in the heart of the strike zone. Obviously, when it's not a bad thing to live in the strike zone, or you want to live in the strike zone. You want to be able to get outs in the strike zone. But obviously, living in the strike zone creates, the potential of more damage because hitters can hit pitches in the strike zone. And because he had such electric stuff, it was kind of easier for him to say, hey, here it is, hit it, live in the heart of the zone. So as a result of the highest edge percentage of his career, he has the lowest meatball percentage of his career. So less pitches right down the middle. And what that means is that Shohei has evolved as a pitcher where he can truly live on the edges, kind of expand the strike zone, not throw pitches right down the middle in the heart of the zone. Live on those edges, which is very Yamamoto-like. The fact that he's pounding the edges of the strike zone more, it just shows that he's really honed in on his mechanics. One thing that you could see with Shohei that's changed since he broke into the big leagues is that he doesn't pitch from just the stretch anymore. He used to pitch from just the stretch. He's actually added the windup. Feels like it gives him more athleticism. Kind of gives him that more forward movement towards the mound. Kind of takes a little bit less stress off of his body. So I like that. And obviously, when you can live on the edges of the strike zone, you can be successful doing that, having less pitches in the heart of the zone, the lowest meatball percentage of his career. And all that has come together, and all that has equated to the lowest batting average against of his career by far at 158. So it just shows that he might not be throwing as hard as he did earlier in his career. He actually is throwing a little bit harder. If you look at the earlier in his career when he averaged more like 96, 97. Right now he's averaging 98. That is a tad bit down from what it was a year ago. He's not getting as high strikeouts as he did. His strikeout rate right now, I believe, is 29%. He's had years where it's been over 30. And last year he actually had a better walk rate. So it just shows that, maybe he doesn't even have as good a stuff as he's had in his career. But what he's honed in on is being a true pitcher and pounding the edges of the strike zone, less pitches in the heart of the plates, and more ground balls. And he's actually lowered his arm slot. I find that very interesting. So it just shows the older he gets, the more refined he is and the more knowledgeable he is about the way to go about it. And right now, he looks as good as he's ever been on the mound, and it is a reason as to why he looks like he's got a great chance to win the Cy Young, and he's clearly gunning for it. All right, and that's going to lead me into my last topic before we get into Game 3. Should he just pitch on his start days? All right, we talked about this earlier in the year, a couple weeks ago when he took on the Mets. That was the first time we saw this. All right, this is going to be a topic with Shohei, no doubt, all year. I thought I saw that Dave Roberts came out and said that they are going to have him just pitch going forward, but I don't think he did. I don't think he officially announced that. But it's definitely going to be a question that we, are kind of talking about all year. Because obviously right now Shohei, his offensive production is a little bit down. I'm starting to ask myself, should I begin to lower my expectations with Shohei offensively? Because like I said, he's clearly going for the Cy Young this year. He clearly wants it. If you actually dig into some numbers and look at his career since he's been a full-time two-way player, the best offensive season of his career was 2024. And what happened to that year? He didn't pitch. He just was able to worry and focus on hitting, and he was historic with the 50-50 season. If you go back to 2022, that was actually the worst offensive year of his career, but the best pitching year of his career. So there are correlations that when he's pitching at his best, the offense might take a hit. Now, it's still very early, and Shohei is not prone to go through slumps and have slow starts. He still has an OPS in the low 800s. All it would take right now is to him to have a decent May. Maybe he gets that OPS in the 840, 850 range, and then let's say in June he goes off like he's done in the past, hits 10, 12 home runs, and we look up at the end of June and he's got an OPS back in the 900s, over 20 home runs, and we won't really be worrying about his offense. And I'm not worried about his offense. I'm just starting to consider, should I, start to lower my expectations and say, hey, maybe this isn't going to be a year where Shohei hits 50 home runs and is basically the second best hitter in the game behind Aaron Judge. Maybe it's more of a low to mid 800s OPS, 35 home runs, but we see the best pitching year that he's had as a Dodger and in his career, and he wins the Cy Young. He would obviously still win the MVP because nobody is doing those things, but it's just something that I'm starting to consider. The Dodgers are clearly considering that. Given that he wants to pitch this much and win the Cy Young and make every start, you do got to find ways to get him days off, and that is one of the ways is him pitching, is him not hitting on his start days. And, we'll see how the offense progresses. I still think I would still lean to him having similar offensive years to what he had the last 2 years. But I'm starting to wonder, should we just start to expect a little bit less? It is a lot to ask to go out there and try to win a Cy Young, and hit 50 home runs and have a 900 OPS on top of that. So we'll see. It's going to be one of the storylines all year. Like every day that Shohei starts, it's going to be news. Is he pitching? Is he not hit? Is he hitting? Is he not hitting? Should he be doing that? Blah, blah, blah. Is he going to do that in the postseason? I imagine that he would. So, maybe it's the kind of thing there where up until like late August or something like that, Shohei doesn't hit on his start days. And then as the postseason gets closer, he starts to do that again so he can get used to that, so he can do it in the postseason, blah, blah, blah. We'll see. It's going to be one of the questions all year, like I said, but he is looking electric on the mound right now. And he looks like one of the best pitchers in the game right now. He's got the best ERA in the sport right now. So, before we wrap up, let's get to Game 3. Tyler Glasnow gets the start against Lance McCullers. As you know by now, Tyler Glasnow left after 1 inning. So, before he came out of the game, Astros got on the board first with a Bryce Matthews leadoff home run off of Tyler Glasnow. But we will progress to the 3rd inning where Andy Pages would hit his 6th home run of the year. This made it a 6-1 game. The Dodgers actually got on the board thanks to multiple wild pitches from Lance McCullers. Almost like uncomfortable to watch. He was not able to find the strike zone, was clearly dealing with a blister issue. The Astros just left him out there because I think their bullpen and rotation is just so taxed that they kind of had no idea. And he threw like over 30 pitches, and he almost got out of the inning with just allowing the 3 earned runs on the wild pitches, but then Andy Pages got him. 3-run homer, makes it 6-1. Later on, a double from Freddie Freeman makes it 7-1. And then another home run into the Crawford boxes, Andy Pages, his 7th home run. Alex Freeland gets on the board with a single to make it 11-1. The Astros would make it 11-2. And then in the 9th inning, off a position player, Andy Pages hits his 3rd home run of the game, his 8th of the year. Andy Pages has a career game. Dodgers win by a score of 12-2. They get out of Houston with the series win. Would have liked to sweep, but will take the series win. Would have liked to see Tyler Glasnow not get hurt, but hey, it seems like he's okay. Tyler Glasnow goes 1 inning. Jack Dreyer pitches 2. Edgardo Henriquez for 2. Kyle Hurt for 1. Blake Trinan for 1. Tanner Scott for 1. And then Brock Stewart makes his season debut. He pitches 1 and strikes out 2. Dodgers win by a score of 12-2. We already talked about Tyler Glasnow, so let's talk about Andy Pages, and we'll talk about some other guys offensively. What a game from Andy Pages. A career game, 3 home runs, the first time he's ever done that in his big league career. His offensive numbers right now, he has a .333 batting average on the year with a .376 on base, a .569 slug, a .945 OPS. He has had an incredible start to the season. And I wanted to give this number. Andy Pages has the 2nd highest increase in hard hit rate in Major League Baseball this year. So from 2025 to 2026, the highest increase in hard hit rate, 37.2%. It is currently at 52.9%. And again, that was before this three home run game. So that number is going to go into the 60s. The 2nd highest increase in hard hit rate behind Andrew Benintendi of the White Sox. So he has improved his hard hit rate a lot, the 2nd best increase in the game. He has played incredible this year. He has been the Dodgers' best player all year. He's been their 2nd best hitter behind Max Muncy. His defense has been incredible, made a couple nice plays in this series and in this game. The offense has gone to another level. I hope he can continue this all year. He did go into a little bit of a lull a couple weeks ago, or last week, I should say, swinging at some bad pitches. Got locked back in this week in Houston, and the offense as a whole really came came awake in these 2 out of these 3 games, obviously not the middle game. But I wanted to give some credit to Kyle Tucker. I've talked a lot about. I broke him down in my last pod. He went 5 for 12 this week. That's great. He's looking a lot better. Freddie Freeman went 4 for 11. That is also pretty good. And then obviously Andy Paz, 7 for 14 during the week. He hit a 500 week in Houston. A great showing from the offense. You could even throw in Haesung Kim had a couple hits, including a triple. Alex Freeland had a few hits, including a home run. Dalton Rushing had a couple hits. So still waiting on a couple other guys. Max Muncy didn't do much in this series, but obviously he's been great as a whole. Teoscar Hernandez is one guy that I'm getting a little scared about. I'm still confident that he can and will turn it around on the season, but his at-bats have not looked good, and he's always been a guy that, similarly to Andy Paz, but because of the way he hits, he's a free swinger, he strikes out a lot, chases a lot, doesn't walk a ton. He leaves, when he's not hitting the ball hard, he's not getting the ball in the air, he's striking out, his offensive numbers are going to be bad because he doesn't have another avenue to get on base like some other guys. He's in a little bit of a scary spot right now. The Dodgers have been hitting him third lately. I know it's more because of the way the lineup is. They're obviously losing Mookie Betts right now. Sometimes Will Smith's not in the lineup. And if you look at their four best hitters, you got Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, Kyle Tucker, Max Muncy. So I know that Teoscar just hits third sometimes because they need a right-handed hitter to break up those left-handed hitters. But I need him lower in the lineup right now. He cannot be hitting third. I need Will Smith in there. I need Andy Paz in there. Teo's got to be hitting lower in the lineup before he can't be trusted right now. His at-bats don't look great. Still is not hitting left-handed pitching. He even had an at-bat yesterday, Tuesday night, where he faced a lefty and just did not look comfortable. Maybe this was Monday night, actually. But, he doesn't look good right now. It's a little worrisome. I don't like the way his at-bats are trending right now. But, I'm still confident in him. And the offense as a whole looked a lot better this week. Like I said, shout out to the bullpen. They had to cover 8 innings after Glasnow left the game with the injury. 8 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts, no walks. Pretty good stuff. Like I said, Brock Stewart closed it out. We'll keep an eye on him, and we'll see how he can look and can he contribute something, bring a high leverage option from the right-handed side. I think the Dodgers believe in him, so we'll see. Hopefully he can stay healthy. He's had a ton of injuries in his career, but I like him, and he looked great in that 1 inning. So that's pretty much it, honestly. After we talk about Yamamoto and Shohei and Andy Paz, that's pretty much it. I really like what I saw from Kyle Tucker this week. He's starting to look much more confident, which is what I like. So hopefully he's already started to break out. If you take a look at his last 8 games, he has an OPS over 800. So he is looking really, really good. So hopefully he can continue that this weekend against the best team in Major League Baseball, not the Dodgers. The Atlanta Braves come into town for 3 games. All right, and they're going to have their 3 guys lined up because they are not just arguably the best offensive team in the game right now. They have great pitching, elite bullpen, elite starting pitching. Emmett Sheehan will take on Chris Sale, all right, one of the better pitchers in the game. That'll be Friday night. Then Roki Sasaki will take on Spencer Strider, formerly one of the best pitchers in the game. He's dealt with injuries last year coming back from Tommy John, but he's still Spencer Strider. He made his, his second start his last time out, so I think this will be his 3rd start since coming off the IL. I think he dealt with an oblique earlier this year. Then on Mother's Day, Sunday, it'll be Justin Robleski, the dog that he is. He goes up against Bryce Elder, who also has one of the best ERAs in Major League Baseball. So some good pitching matchups this week. Dodgers are going to need to bring their bats because they're going to face some dudes on the mound. All right, Sheehan's going to need to bounce back. And Sasaki's going to need to continue to get better with that splitter. And Robleski, just keep doing your thing, bro. So that is all I have for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy. This was a pretty good series. Would love to see the offense continue to get a little bit more consistent. All right? They were so close to really making us feel good. Obviously, they had the stinker Wednesday sandwiched in between 2 breakout games offensively. Starting to like the at-bats from, I called out some guys last week talking about Kyle Tucker. I broke him down why he struggled. Freddie Freeman had begun to struggle. Andy Paz has had some bad at-bats. 3 of those guys played really good in this series. So I want to see Max Muncy and Teoscar Hernandez look a little bit better, and Shohei Ohtani in this next series against the Braves. So those are the guys I'll keep an eye on this weekend. It's going to be a fun series. Pretty much the 2 best teams in baseball, 2 best teams in the NL for sure. Maybe an NLCS preview. Who knows? The Dodgers and Braves have had a ton of matchups throughout the years in the postseason. Maybe 2026 will be another year. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. Any of your thoughts below, comments, worries, excitement, all that stuff, leave it below. I'll definitely respond if you guys would like. You can get this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media at Talking Blue Pod. You can follow myself at Nick Talking Ball on X. We will see you guys this weekend on Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We'll see you guys on Mother's Day to recap the weekend series between the Atlanta Braves and your Los Angeles Dodgers.